This is TWiT.
AzuraCast is basically a web radio station in a box, so to speak. It's a self-contained web radio management suite. And so this is mostly for broadcasting internet radio. It's not necessarily for FM radio, although it has been used for that. It's also been used for a myriad of other use cases. But what the basic idea of what we do is we package a full open source stack of dependencies. So that's, Liquid Soap is a soft piece of software we use for our auto DJ. Icecast and Shoutcast are what broadcast out to the public and can handle large volumes of connections. And then we build on top of that a powerful web application that allows you to manage every aspect of the radio station directly from the web browser. So no terminal experience needed. It's meant to be as intuitive and turnkey as possible. And really everything that we've put together is meant to make it basically 5 minutes, between spinning up, starting a VPS or a server and getting your web radio station broadcasting.
So I was just going to ask, actually, Buster, when you were talking about the project there, how did it come about? How did the project start? Were you involved from the start?
Yes, I created the project. AzuraCast has been what it is, basically this standalone self-hosted application. It has been that for 5 years now, and I've been working on it basically every day of those 5 years, and it's been a labor of love and a sort of personal passion project of mine. But before that, what we were doing was building similar software to that, but for specialized community. We had a very specialized radio station, really didn't get a whole lot of listeners. You probably haven't heard of it. But that software that we use there, we discovered in about 2016 that really there were very few entrants in the open source space for web radio, that there were components that were open source. So you could put together a web radio station based on components, but a full management suite was predominantly commercial software. And, either in the form of executable, installable applications that run on your computer. You have to have, $300 a year license for that. Or in terms of web applications, but where the application source code was completely obfuscated and you couldn't get in, you can't make modifications, you can't hack it, you can't build plugins. It's all black box. You can't actually get in and modify it. And we thought that there was a gap there, basically, that there was a need that our application, which already was open source at that point, but had no one really caring about it, because it was just for our specialized community, we had an opportunity to take that and make it universal to web radio stations in general, and actually make it a sort of entrant into that field, an actual competitor alongside those other more commercial offerings.
I mean, that sounds really, really cool. One thing I did notice is I was looking around at things like Rivendell, which I think you may have just mentioned then, which came up in my mind. But if I'm right, I was going to ask you what are the differences between this and Rivendell, but I think, so it's kind of pre-answer my own question, which is a bit silly, but there we go, that Rivendell's more for like people all based in the same physical location, like an actual radio studio where people come in and out. Would that be a fair comparison?
It is. I would say a lot of the software that you see out there is one of two things. So if you look at a lot of radio automation software, it's built for terrestrial radio stations, and a lot of those do expect that you'll be managing a media library local to your computer, or everybody will be sort of on the same site in the same location. And then there's web-based solutions that are out there. So if you think TWiT, for example, a lot of people would know of that as an existing commercial option. This very much fills that same niche, which is where all of the music data and playlists are all stored on the cloud. You can store them on S3 or Dropbox or anywhere else. We have support for a number of those options. But really, it's all, your media is on the cloud, and it manages the auto DJ for you. And if you want to, you can broadcast, you can cut in and interrupt it and actually do live broadcasts. And so if you have scheduled shows, for example, you can still do that without any problem, but then it orchestrates everything for you on a server. So your radio station runs 24/7 no matter what.
So you don't have to keep your computer under the stairs running to keep your radio station going.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very, very useful. I'm sure people will be trying to do this with a Raspberry Pi or something, but it's great to have it out in the cloud there. One thing I did notice though that I would possibly compare it to, as I'm sure you get asked this a lot, is something like hang on, let me get it up, LibreTime.org, which used to be called Airtime.
Correct.
Yeah. So how do you compare with LibreTime?
It's not so much that it used to be called that. Airtime went commercial and decided to offer theirs as a SaaS offering, basically. And when they did that, it's actually really a similar story to what's happening with Audacity right now. The community said, we'll fork it right at the last commit that was open source. And so we take that, we fork it, and we just maintain that fork as the community edition. So that's what LibreTime is. The LibreTime maintainers and I are good friends. We talk quite a lot. We see ourselves as flip sides of sort of the same coin. Basically, we're offering two pieces of a complete solution. What the advantage they have on their end is that their application is very schedule driven. It's very programming and schedule driven. So if that's, your number one priority is to have everything be scheduled perfectly on your radio station and to have this drag and drop scheduler, that's an excellent thing that they do. Ours is more, auto DJ management and procedural sort of playlist building and log maintenance and things like that. Like we have other advantages that make our software powerful. And we also have the advantage of being Greenfield's code. This is one big difference, and this is not something that a lot of people notice out in the world, because if you look at LibreTime and you look at AzuraCast, they kind of look similar as an end user, but the LibreTime code is about 10 to 15 years old at this point. And there's a big bulk of technical debt that's there. The code is, we both are built in PHP, by the way, so it's a common language between the two. But their PHP is kind of 5.3 era, a couple of years ago, a little bit out of date. And ours is 8.0, as in the day it released, we updated to it. Just blazing cutting edge modern best practices. And that's one thing that helps us keep our technical debt down a little bit, and that is one of the big differentiators. If you want to build on top of it, for example, you want to build custom plugins, you want to expand the software, our platform is a more modern one to build on top of.